Call the meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Mr. Cockrell.
Here.
Ms. Kelly.
Here.
Mr. Denton.
Yes.
Mr. Majors.
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
Yes. Next item will be the statement from the Board Vice President.
As we begin this meeting, let us pause for a 60-second moment of silence to reflect, meditate, pray, or engage in any other silent activity. Thank you.
Next item will be the Pledge of Allegiance led by the Board Deputy Clerk, Michelle Kelly.
Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item will be the formal adoption of the agenda.
Move the formal adoption of the agenda.
Second.
Motion and second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Cockrell.
Yes.
Ms. Kelly.
Yes.
Mr. Denton.
Yes.
Mr. Majors.
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
Yes.
Y'all got a voting?
Voting. I'm waiting.
Are you going to change?
No, we'll do it during the action item. Yep. Next item will be the approval of October 8th board minutes.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Cockrell.
Yes.
Ms. Kelly.
Yes.
Mr. Denton.
Yes.
Mr. Majors.
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
Yes. Next item, Mr. Ptolomeo.
Good evening, Dr. Dunlop, President Allen, members of the board. I'm here to present to you guys our 2018 Associated Builders and Contractors of Oklahoma Award for the Freshman Academy. Manhattan Construction and Seltzer Schaefer designed and built a great great building for us, and they received the instructional $5 to $10 million ABC award for the Freshman Academy. And they have some hardware. We have Jason Martin, Jason Patrick with Manhattan Construction, and Hank Speaker with Seltzer Schaefer Architects here, and they're here to present the Eagle to you guys.
Wow.
Bob, this should probably go in your office, shouldn't it?
I have.
You do all the work.
Well, thank you guys.
Yes.
Great job.
I do want to say we get so many compliments in the Freshman Academy, and I know, where's Michelle Birdwell?
Right here.
You love the floating bee, don't you? We hear about it all the time, but honestly, I hear from community members and my own father all the time. He always says, "Have you seen how pretty that building is?" I said, "Yeah, Dad, I do work there." But amazing job, and we're really, really proud of the work you've done, so thank you.
Well, thank you.
Great job. Next item, number 7, Mr. Ptolomeo.
Well, I'm just full of good news tonight. The Timber Ridge recently won an AIA award, not just one, but two. They won the People's Choice Award, which is voted for by the public as a fan favorite, and the Citation Award, which is voted on by a jury of architects that you have to qualify for. And they beat out OSU Center for Health Science, Jinx Northwest Elementary School, Tandy Family YMCA, the Children's Center Rehabilitation Hospital, Muskogee Creek Nation Community Hospital, and the HEB Austin Mueller Grocery Store for these two awards they've received. And we have GH2 in the back. We have Michael Hall, Terry Madum, Nick Spriggs, and Nicole Shea. And they have some hardware to present to you guys as well.
Anytime we can beat Jinx, we'll take it.
That's right. That's right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, number 8, Mr. Blackburn.
Where you going?
Thank you, Mr. Tolman. That's a tough act to follow.
It is, and I'm definitely not Mr. Blackbird. President Allen, Dr. Dunlop, members of the board, thank you for letting me come to speak to you today about a much smaller award. This is one that we received from PSO this summer for our peak performers events that we have every summer. This is the Most Improved School District. We actually increased our incentive 551% over the last 2 years, resulting in, if you remember last year, I brought a jumbo check for $53,000. Well, this year it's $96,000. Wow. I would love to take a picture with the members of the board.
Steve, I'll let you do it.
Me?
Nice job, Mr. Allen.
Charlie said he was sending
All about saving money.
I didn't think you.
Just stand behind the big check. There you go.
Do you want Oscar over there too? You want Oscar?
Great.
But wait, there's more. Yes. I also just finished my numbers for September of this year, which results in a 24-month period. So with 2 years of our contract with Synergistic and Broken Arrow Public Schools, we've reached $1 million in savings. And this is a result of all of the staff, definitely custodial and maintenance, replacing thermostats, just working hard to save and conserve energy where we can. It's definitely a big team effort. So anyway, just thank you for everyone that's put forward the effort to save energy.
Well, thank you, Jaden. You've made a huge difference. And I'm going to be honest, I wasn't a big believer at first, but you've convinced me. And I do also want to thank the staff, because it's only if we have staff buy-in that these things work. And they've made a conscientious effort to really do those things that matter in conservation. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, Ms. Bergwall.
Good evening, President Allen, Dr. Dunlop, members of the board. I have with me tonight the Highland Park PTA and Highland Park principal. They're back there in the back, and they would like you to approve tonight a donation for a shade structure valued at $11,348. It's a fairly large shade structure that'll be on their back playground and bench and associated concrete, so that it'll help improve their playground, give them some shade and an area for an outdoor classroom.
Discussion.
Move approval.
Second?
Got a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to thank the PTA for all of the work that you all do on behalf of our district, and certainly, most importantly, our students. Thank you.
Next item, comments from the public. We have none. Next item will be the consent agenda items 12 through 67.
Move the general consent items 12 through 67.
Second?
Got a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Cockrell?
Abstain.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Next item will be number 68, and it will be Ms. Carnes.
Good evening. Last board meeting, we brought to you the policies that were met at each policy council that we are recommending for this first semester. After the first read, we ask tonight that you vote on adopting those policies.
One item of note here, section 1, going to ask to have that be removed so we can do some more discussion and working of that policy to make a better fit for the board and the district. So whenever, if they make the motion, please reference that in your motion. I ask that we remove section 1, please.
Okay. I move the policies set forth in this item number 68 with the exception of section 1, Board of Education, policy 1230.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Miss Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Thank you. Oh, Ms. Kearns, you're still up?
I'm still up.
69.
Last year, with the board's permission, we began a very conscious and thoughtful process of evaluating our support staff salary schedules. Last year, we were able to improve one section based upon retention rates, job declines. It's very important to us to remain competitive in the job market in all of our areas and be good employers to our support staff. This year, the next section of our support pay scales was direct classroom support. That includes our teacher aides, paraprofessionals, behavior coaches, positions that work with students every day. We are asking tonight that the board invest $380,000 more into that salary schedule that we would implement in January.
I'd like to make a couple of comments. First of all, I want to acknowledge certainly the work of all of those that have participated in this, but I want to also compliment the district and those staff members that have been a part of this, because this is very strategic and it is a part of our strategic plan. So it's informed our decision making, and what this does, it sets forth real clear direction for our employees, and it acknowledges that we are moving as a district and we are moving by what we say. Our actions are lining up with our words, and that's very important, because by doing so, then when we're telling employees that we're going to look at things and we're going to eventually address those things, they now can say, hey, we've got a roadmap here and we can see that we are moving as a district when we say we're going to do something. So I'm very appreciative of it, and I believe this is the right move for our organization as a whole.
Thank you. We're very proud.
Ms. Kearns, I also like to comment and thank you, Natalie, Rusty, all the hard work that you guys are putting into this. It's nice that we are putting actions to words when we talk about, we always say we want to do better for the classroom, and we are actually doing that. I think we've done that the last 2 years, and we're going to continue to do that. We have a goal as a board, and our goal is to meet that by next year, and this is putting us on the right path, and I think our teachers are going to be very, very excited next year, hopefully, if things work out. And I've heard lots of compliments on our efforts, and it's you all that are doing it, and we appreciate it. So thank you.
I also would like to echo that, and that we know that this is direct impact in the classroom, and no matter how great a teacher is, if you have a lot of kiddos in the classroom and no direct help from a paraprofessional, a teacher's aide, from all of these positions that we're talking about, then it's nearly impossible to do your job. And we know that we've had cuts and cuts and cuts to education, but this is our effort in starting to give back into those things that directly impact our student learning, because that's what we do. That's why we're here. So thank you, Lori, and your team. Thank you.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Miss Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Thank you. Next item, number 70, Mr. Tolomeo.
Good evening again. I'm here to seek your approval to award Elementary 16 to GH2 Architects.
Is that it?
I don't have any more awards. I already got those out.
You know where it's going to be at?
I do not know where it's going to be at.
Okay, just asking.
Make a motion to approve.
Well, I heard where it was.
Second.
Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Miss Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Next, item
Thank you.
71. Ms. Bergwall.
He went faster than I thought he would. I bring for you tonight the rigging that needs to be replaced at the auditorium. Luckily, we have money from the PAC project bond funds, and the rigging controllers are starting to fail. In fact, I think our techs are moving motors around to raise and lower scenery and lighting and curtains and what have you. So at this time, we'd like you to approve the bids to replace the rigging control. The current equipment is no longer manufactured, and that's why we're having a hard time maintaining it and keeping it. So we would like to replace it.
I have a question related to that.
Yes.
So as we're moving forward, I'm assuming we're taking the right steps to ensure that we do have someone who can maintain the parts and what have you. But then on the other end, you know, as we look at something that is definitely what we need, we've done our due diligence there too to make sure that this is something that will work and benefit us for years to come.
Yes, and really the system that Scott selected was one that has been around for years, and that company's been around for years, and they have a very good quality reputation. And then, of course, we solicited bids from 3 different contractors, and even with that, one of them didn't include the encoder, which is, you know, the electronic portion of it that lets you program it. So we're confident that this, you know, company will be around for years, and these controllers will then be able to be replaced, and we won't be looking at doing the entire system, just the motors as they fail. You know, it is 10 years old, so it's not surprising that some of them are failing, but for us to have to replace the whole system is disappointing.
Wouldn't you say, though, there's a cost to doing the business cheaper? It's not always the best.
Correct.
And so we have people who can ensure by looking at that we're making sure it's quality.
Yes.
Okay.
But could some of that be as a result of the competitive bid laws that we're hamstrung with when we do bid those things out, and they come in with,
Right.
you know, a product that it was good today, but it's gone in 5 years? I mean,
Yes, you're absolutely right. When we built the facility, it was bid as part of that competitive bid. With this, it's an equipment package,
Yeah.
and equipment luckily doesn't follow under the competitive bid law, so we just follow board policy and purchasing. And it is reason Mr. Tolomeo and I have conversations about some of the equipment that we provide for our buildings. That's why we do some of that stuff outside of the contract, because as you said, when you have to wrap it up into the competitive bid process, you have to go with the lowest, and that's not always your quality
absolutely.
item.
Any questions or discussion?
Move approval?
Second.
Motion and a second, please call the roll.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Miss Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Next item,
Thank you.
72, Ms. Enoff.
Good evening. My first item tonight is to ask the board to approve an increase to the building fund operating budget in the amount of $300,000. If you will recall, when the building fund budget was approved, the operating budget was approved back in September, we kept that budget fairly flat. It's a very small, dedicated source of revenue, but we were a little too ambitious in remaining flat for this year with the support raises that went into effect along with the stipend. So we're asking for this increase to cover operating expenditures through the end of the year.
Discussion or questions?
Make a motion to approve.
Second?
Motion and a second, please call the roll.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Miss Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Note here on item 73, it is not an action item, it's going to be an information-only item. Ms. Enoff.
The next item is the monthly financial reports through the end of October. State aid, you can see, is coming in much higher than what we collected as of this time last year. $55 million allocation to us, $11 million more than what we received at this time last year with our allocation. Our midterm allocation will be released sometime in January, and That will be based on our October 1 counts that were certified by our RAO. Ad valorem is just collecting at back taxes at this point. We'll start to get our big payments in December and January, and state sources are also up to reflect FBA and our textbook allocation. Again, building fund, ad valorem is pretty much the main thing we've collected in so far, and again, with it being pretty much the dedicated source of revenue, we monitor this fund very closely for expenditures. And child nutrition, her claims had been delayed by the State Department, but she is now starting to be able to claim and collect funds to cover her expenses. General fund, you'll see a big shift in salaries from this time last year. Again, the mandated raises that went into effect, and the one-time employee retention stipend that was released in October. Building fund, we're staying pretty consistent with where we were at this time last year. A little more in the purchase property services, but again, we're a growing district, and we have to be very careful and focused on what we spend our building fund on. Just as kind of a side note, with the election being over, State Question 801 did fail, and so that will not go into effect for us. That was the question on basically being able to use building fund the same way we use general fund for all operations, and that did not pass. And child nutrition, she's doing really well with her collections and expenditures. Again, she covers everything from her own employee benefit costs, workers' comp, everything is self-contained under child nutrition. And at the next board meeting in December, we will finalize our 2017-18 figures with our audited financials. We'll be able to present the final ending fund balance that, again, is reported in the CAFR. Questions?
Questions, discussion? Next item.
Okay, my next item, very excited to present this item tonight. I have the privilege of being up here to present it, but really it's the work of our athletic department. Mr. Dunn, Mr. Sean Dolan has really taken the lead on getting this off the ground for us. If you recall, at our summer board retreat, we set a goal as a district to start sanctioning some of our activity accounts. And the boys basketball booster club, or excuse me, BA basketball booster club is going to be the first one to take that leap and that step. Again, this required a lot of work on behalf of our parents to step up and do this. They've completed the sanctioning application, tax ID number, and all the other steps. And so I'm very proud to present this to the board tonight.
Seeing if is this something we're going to move forward with all of our?
Yes.
Is it going to be required, or is it going to be?
It won't be required, but it will be at the request and the at the will of the parents if they choose to pursue this. Again, the basketball booster club, this was kind of a timing thing because they have a very large event that they're hosting, and so it was really good timing for them to kind of take the first step and the first leap into this. And again, a lot of thanks goes to Mr. Dunn, Mr. Dolan, Mr. Perry for helping lead this charge. It's a big step for Broken Arrow, but again, we're a very large school district, and we have an excellent parent support to be able to make this very successful, and I'm sure it will be.
I do believe this will certainly give the parents greater flexibility, and it will certainly help with our personnel hours, the number of hours that we contribute to that cause. So I think it's going to be well received. Of course, as with anything, as you begin the process, there may be a few kinks here or there, but not anything that we can't work through.
It's always hard to be the first one, and they know that, and they've taken on that responsibility with great honor. And like you said, there will be some kinks that we have to work out and some issues that we haven't had to deal with in the past, but we will be very supportive of them moving forward, and they will definitely set the tone for the other organizations that choose or may not choose to be sanctioned on down the line. But very appreciative again to Mr. Dunn, Mr. Perry, the parent organization that's really gotten behind and rallied behind this charge. You know, we talk about the CAFR a lot and the financial reporting and how intricate that is, and because we've chosen to present in that format, which is great that we do that. Unfortunately, it does bring a lot of restrictions to how we have to report our numbers and spending guidelines and all that. And so for some of our activity funds that have the parent strength and the parent support, this will allow them to flourish and to bring in even more revenue for the kids, make the programs even greater and bigger, and allow our staff to focus on kids and the coaches and running a great program, and not so much at the administrative side of running the clubs.
Move approval.
I got one more question.
Oh, I'm
Ms.
sorry.
Kelly. If we were to go across the board, sanction booster clubs, how many man hours would that save you internally? I know you're not going to have a number, but I mean, is it quite a bit?
It would be huge, not only for the athletic staff, the fine arts staff, but we have 2.5 activity fund custodians in the finance office, and so it would just allow a shift in responsibilities and duties, again, for them to focus on programmatic things for the kids and the teachers and the coaches, and that's our goal.
All right, thank you. Sorry, Ms. Kelly.
Move approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Next item, 75, Dr. Dunlop.
Yes, I bring you an action item tonight to recommend a transition in the EDC board. The Economic Development Corporation Board is a board of community members, school district folks that serve with the Chamber of Commerce with a focus of trying to improve commerce in this area, specifically around economic development. As we vote on this item, I want to thank Ms. Kelly for serving on this board for I don't even know how many years. It's been 10 years. And bring that up as a point that just like the board members up here, they serve without being paid. I mean, this is all voluntary. So to be willing to do that and then serve in other areas in the community just shows how much they love Broken Arrow and want to serve well. So thank you, Ms. Kelly, for serving for 10 years. So with this recommendation, what it means is we would like to recommend that Mr. Allen serve on this board. So that recommendation then will be taken to the board of the EDC in December, and given that that's approved through that board, then that transition will be made in January. So I bring this to the board as a recommendation.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes, thank you. Next item, 76, Dr. Dunlop.
Yes, this item is one that we do annually for consideration of the board, and it is the endorsement of the 2019 One Voice legislative agenda. One Voice is an organization that's put together through the entire Tulsa County area, and it's made up of business leaders, higher education, nonprofit organizations, of course, education. And what they do is they get together to come and put together a cumulative voice that then will speak to legislators on what's important for us in this next legislative session. Mr. Perry and I served on the Education Committee this year, and with that we bring this One Voice legislative agenda to the board for consideration of endorsement.
Move approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Next item, new business. We have none. Next item, the 78, executive session.
Move to executive session.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, please call the roll.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Miss Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Move we return from executive session.
What time is it?
Got a motion and a second, please call the roll.
8:39.
Okay, Mr. Cockrell?
Here.
Miss Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Next item, number 80.
Hold on.
The board clerk.
Oh, yeah, okay. The Board of Education and Dr. Janet Dunlop and Michelle Bergwall entered into executive session at 6:28 p.m. to discuss the purchase, sale, or appraisal of certain real estate property in accordance with Oklahoma Statute Title 25 OS Section 307B3, and to discuss the evaluation of Dr. Janet Dunlop, Superintendent, pursuant to Oklahoma Statute 25 Section 307B1 of the Oklahoma Open Meeting Act. Michelle Bergwall departed at 7:30 p.m. Steve Majors stepped out at 8:07 p.m. and returned at 8:10 p.m. The Board of Education returned to open session at 8:39 p.m. This constitutes the minutes of the executive session.
Thank you. Next item, 81, will need to be tabled at this time.
Make a motion to table.
Second.
Motion and second, please call the roll.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Miss Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Next item will be to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and second, please call the roll.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Miss Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.